Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Well, I'm the bad cop with Daryl W4 and our very special guest tonight, Jennifer from Team AJK. Now, you might notice that the geocaching doc had a last-minute change, so he wasn't able to join us for this, Randomize 38. He's missing a bunch of cool and sometimes strange stuff this week, but we'll have him on again soon. In the meantime, we're thrilled to have Jennifer back. Jennifer, welcome to your very first Randomize show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Now, I'm sure all the GeoGearheads know, but in case you're new, thank you for listening. Jennifer is our GeoGearheads puzzle expert, and while everyone should go back and check out those shows, we're not going to be talking that much tonight about puzzles. As we get close, and there are questions, so maybe we'll toss in a few here and there. But Daryl, we always have a question for our viewers and listeners to help win a prize. What was that question this week, or should I say last week?
The question we asked last week for this week's show is, which nation is credited with designing the rockets that carried the Galileo 9 and 10 satellites into orbit? So, Jennifer, I think you know that answer.
I have the answer here. It looks like we had two acceptable answers, either Russia or the USSR. And this was one of the Soyuz family of rockets, which was first flown nearly 50 years ago. And they're still currently in use. These are the rockets they used to get the astronauts to the International Space Station, which I knew from watching Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, and it's a whole family of rockets. It's not just like one or two. They have a whole family of them. So
like a mama rocket and a
I'm
rocket.
just seeing the the stickers that go on the back of the engineers' vehicles with the mama rocket, the daddy rocket, and all the little baby rockets.
A little papushka. What do they call these?
Papushka.
Papushka. Thank you. Yes, a little papushka rocket. I guess that's the cargo on top, isn't it, of the rocket?
Probably. But out of the dozens of people who got that right, only one can get that paid membership to Project-GC. So, who was picked in that random drawing?
That was Ed to Ed.
Congrats, and he already has the code for that membership. Thanks to everyone, though, who entered, and to Project-GC.com for donating that prize. If you're joining us live, though, stay with us, and even if you're not, stay with us, but those of you joining us live will have another chance at a Project-GC membership in a moment. First, Bad Cop, we have an email about last week's show.
We sure do. I want to jump into the Q&A for just a quick moment. From Limax, he says, I'm puzzled about random puzzles over puzzling a puzzle solution about puzzles that are random.
That's
and,
random.
I didn't know if I could get through that. But I did. Now,
I didn't think I could. We have the much easier comment from Mr. Marks, who says he loves puzzles.
Ooh.
Who doesn't love a good puzzle? Hey.
I don't know, because you were on Cash and Release this last week. I kind of got the impression that Michael Miller isn't all that fond of puzzles, so you might have changed his mind.
We'll bring him around. Yeah, we'll bring him around.
Yeah, and he is going to be on the show again, I think, in November. So we can hassle him and see if he's gotten any puzzles done.
Well, he got that one the other night, so that was fun.
Nice. I haven't had a chance to listen to that yet, but it's on my to-do list. Okay, let's start off this show with an email from our good friend and co-host on the show. What do we say? Person of the show? Person of interest.
Well, he'll be back on next week, so we can find out what we call him then.
Okay. But we call him the Bear. He said, I just listened to 90% of the most recent episode. The rest will be listened to tonight on my commute home. Stupid work is not far enough away. I don't know people that say work is not far enough away from home. That's an interesting one. But that tells me that he didn't get to the question of the week until he, got home. Anyway. He goes on to say, I had a couple of thoughts as I was pedaling that I wanted to share with you. I did not get a chance to submit a tip for solo caching last week, but I wanted to submit one now. My tip, if your goal is to engage in solo caching, do not, under any circumstances, bring a friend. Or for that matter, an enemy, or even a disinterested third party of any kind. If you are leaving home, if you're leaving any more than one set of footprints, you have failed at the solo part of solo caching. I've done the math on this. I'm going to trust him there. I haven't done the math in my head, but I'm thinking he might be right. Second, more seriously, I want to outline the importance. I want to outline the importance of the point Native Texan brought up about staying hydrated, especially in the fall and spring months. Just last week, I was speaking to a coworker who is a U.S. Marine, now reservist, and he served at least one tour in the deserts of Iraq. He is also a site safety supervisor for our local work site. He mentioned that in the Marines, he saw more dehydration issues in the fall and spring than any other time. The stated reason is that the weather is deceptive. Since it doesn't feel overly warm, people forget to hydrate. However, you're still working and your body is still cooling with sweat, so you're still facing the need to hydrate. A personal rule of thumb is to drink just a little bit more than I think I need. It never hurts to have a little more water in your system, but it can hurt a lot not to have quite enough. Thanks to you and your guests for a fun, informative show. Well, there you go. Guys, do we have anything to say about this?
I would agree with that, and I actually enjoyed that show myself. I've done a lot of solo caching, and I prefer to cache with others, but it was kind of interesting. One of the folks talked about the fact that there could sometimes be positive to caching alone, and I would also agree with that. One suggestion I wanted to make, which has come in handy for me when I've been caching solo and doing so while I'm out of town, is to try to establish a local phone a friend or text a friend before I get there. I found that really helps me out. If I have trouble with a hide, I can get in touch with somebody. I've found that the hiding styles really do vary regionally. Things that we would never hide here because of the weather, you can get away with in other places in terms of containers or locations. Those locals could also give you ideas about where to park or even just a place to get something to eat. And they might even be willing to meet up with you for a meal or a snack, or even come out and cache with you a little bit. If you're really lucky, you might even be able to attend an event out of town, and that way, even though you're solo, you're getting to meet some other folks and just kind of spread the caching joy.
I love that idea of meeting up with a local if you're, of course, caching out of town. But even if you're caching in town, plan to meet up with someone else at a certain time so they know that you should be there, and let them know where you are.
Moving on, we ran into an interesting glitch with our 2016 GeoGearHeads Patron Traveler race and had to contact the developer, which is Sasha of the 4Cashews. The issue seems to have initially been that the travelers stopped updating their distance from the target cache. Well, it turned out the problem was actually a lot more complicated, as the East Midlands Airport Travel Bug Hotel cache, which is the destination, was a premium cache. It was muggled, disabled, replaced, and then made active again. So it was read in with a 0-0 coordinate, so prime meridian equator. Then it just stopped updating. So he's fixed the issue by manually correcting the coords in the race, but there's a tip when using tb-run.com for any of your races or anything. Avoid using premium caches as the target. And actually, better yet, avoid the caches that might get muggled.
Oh, see, if you can see into the future, that's an easy thing to do, Daryl.
Well, I just thought that was one of the attributes.
Oh, yes. Easily muggled.
Right. But that's actually going to be our live question. So if you're watching us live, of course, you have until 9:50 p.m. Eastern, that's 6:50 p.m. Pacific, to email us for your chance at a 365-day membership to Project-GC. The title of the email is going to be Randomize 38. Include your geocaching.com screen name in the body with your answer to the website we're using to track the status of the racers in the 2016 GeoGearHeads Patron Traveler Race. That's a mouthful. That's it. Just have the Randomize 38 email to us at geogearheads@cachingmaniacs.com by 9:50 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on October 15th with your geocaching.com screen name in the body along with that right answer. We'll announce the winner at the end of this episode, so stay with us to find out if you won.
And continuing with the DeBear email episode, he sends in an email that says, I saw the What an RAF Pilot Can Teach Us About Being Safe on the Road, an article from London Cyclists, and thought it may make an interesting topic for a randomized episode. Though the article is about cycling and driving, it's also about how our brains block out motion in vision. I can see many times where I've missed seeing a cache because I had just moved my head around, aka creating my own motion blur, instead of focusing on the specific spot. Since I just saw motion, my brain just filtered out the cache from my conscious vision. I can see how the lessons of this article will change how I explore my next GZ. That is interesting. I don't know if I've considered that before.
I know I have, but most of the time what I start thinking about is how can I scare the cache so that it moves so that I can see it better?
Yes, because as primary hunters with the vision in the front, we see movement very well.
Right. We don't necessarily see that camoed pill container so well, so we need it to move. And you know what I've actually done seriously for that is when I'm like doing the tree hides, I actually kind of wiggle the branches a bit to get that pill container to jostle around and hopefully catch the light so that I'll notice it.
Move in a different way than the rest of the trees.
Exactly.
We need that cache hunting dog to scare it. Go in there and flush the cache out, and then we shoot it. Wait, this is not working right.
No.
I'm usually trying cache ESP. I'm like, okay, where are you? Speak to me.
Well, we just need that Tupperware detector for the GPSRs that DeLorme promised us. It won't work on all of them, but, you know.
I always think, where would I hide it? Oh, that's a great spot. That's not where it's hidden.
No, I do that quite a bit myself.
Oh, yeah, I'm an expert at looking where I want it to be rather than where it is.
Well, we actually had a bunch of articles that have popped up in the last few weeks about navigation systems, not GPS, though some are from GPS. So we're going to kick off with a bunch of the articles from GPS World, whereas actually I get most of these. They had a couple of notable articles on the Galileo system, and we'll link to those in the show notes. The big thing that comes of this is there's 2 more Galileo satellites that are scheduled for launch at the end of this year. They just got 2 more up, and those 2 are now operational. So in December, I think is what they said that they were looking at for those. More Galileo satellites are being manufactured by OHB in Brenham, Germany. The navigation payloads are coming from Surrey Satellite Technology Limited in the UK. And in turn, they're using elements sourced from all across Europe, so they're really making that into a whole EU manufacturing process. And one of the in-orbit validation satellites, SIF, is not working very well right now, having suffered a power failure in late May. And the first 2 FOC satellites, Dorisa and Milena, ended up in the wrong orbit. And we talked about that before. So they were able to use those with some modifications to the system, but they are still planning on having everything up and operational on schedule. It's going pretty well now. They just have these issues that they have to kind of overcome with getting new satellites up and operational.
Interesting.
That's
I know
cool.
that when they launch satellites, they put, I just want to say it's compressed air, to help adjust their orbit, but they have very limited supply of that. So if they're in the wrong spot or in the wrong orbit, they can adjust them, but maybe not enough to get them back where they should be. So,
well, remember that those were Soyuz failures. They had early shutoff or something, so they were in substantially the wrong orbit. And when we did that show, we were sitting there looking at the distance, and it was like a huge distance that these were off.
Yeah, they're looking at it going, wait, that can't be part of the system. That doesn't look like anything else. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's not all we've seen in satellite navigation news.
No, apparently China has launched their 20th, you told me how to pronounce this, I'm going to go with Baidu.
That's right.
The Baidu satellite, their 20th one, with a hydrogen clock. And according to the report, China launched this new generation Baidu satellite into orbit at 7:13 a.m. China Standard Time on Wednesday, the 30th of September. And they're going to plan to expand those services to most of the countries offered in their Belt and Road Initiative by 2018 and offer global coverage by 2020. This project was named after the Chinese term for the Plough or Big Dipper constellation, and it started back in 1994, and they're still working on getting it going. So,
kind of gives you some appreciation of how massive setting up a system like this is. You know, we are dealing with satellites in the GPS system from the 70s, designed in the 60s, launched in the 70s, still operational. And you know, these guys, in China, started their process back in '94, and they only have their 20th satellite up and don't expect to finish it till 2020. So, you know, you're looking at 25-year project to get the system up, and then at that point, how many of those are going to have to be replaced shortly thereafter? So, you know,
Two that we know of.
Well, no, that's the ones you're thinking of, the ones in the Galileo constellation.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Right,
You're
but
right.
they are those two actually work. They just are in the wrong orbit, so they had to make some changes. So they're still going to be functional and usable, but not as reliable, I guess, is what they were saying. It's the other one. They have the one that had a power failure. That's the one that they're probably going to have to replace. Yeah. But they have spares built into the system, so that should take care of that one.
You have spares built into the system, but if the system isn't complete, do they still have spares?
Well, it depends on how many satellites blow up, or
or collide, because we're talking about even more launches here. Now, this is the GPS. Is it the 2F or is it the IFF?
It's a 2F.
The 2F. So GPS 2F11 set to launch October 30th. It's just in 2 weeks, folks. United Launch Alliance Atlas V 401 will launch the GPS 2F11 mission for the U.S. Air Force on Friday, October 30th, from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. I've been there. That's a fun place to visit. If you haven't been there, you need to go there. Go to the Rocket Garden. Anyway, so the GPS 2F11 is the second to the last of the Block 2F satellites to be launched. So they're nearly done. And it will be the third GPS mission that the ULA, the United Launch Alliance, launches in 2015.
Well, this is actually a private launch company who's taking care of these. Right. So it's another one of these, private space things actually working. But more importantly, we're seeing the last two of the Block 2 satellites going up to replace our failing GPS satellites. And then I haven't seen any stories about it in a while, but the Block 3 satellites, I think, are going to start launching sometime about this time next year.
We're going to start losing sunlight with all these satellites up there.
You'd think so.
But so Block 2 is nearly finished, which is kind of cool. Yeah, and that means they can start launching Block 3. So, but we have more. Yes, folks, there's more. Because we've talked about China, we've talked about the EU, we've talked about China, we've talked about the US. What about India? 4 Indian regional navigation satellites are now in orbit, with 3 remaining to complete the system. The next, this is the Indian Regional National Satellite System, or the IRNSS. The next satellite, the 1E, is scheduled for launch in November, and the 1F is set for a launch in December.
I found this stuff really fascinating. Before looking at these articles, I wasn't even aware that other countries were putting up their own systems. It had just never even occurred to me that nobody wanted to really be dependent on anybody else, and I found that fascinating.
A lot of that is national pride, that we have a system. Now, this one is just a regional, so there's only 7 satellites. They're just going to cover, the Indian area. But, a lot of that is, what if we go to war? Who owns the GPS system that we're currently using?
Well, and GPS has, right now it's the U.S. Air Force that controls them and the government owns them. But the system is aging. It's not the best design by today's standards, and they've learned a lot from using these satellites. That's kind of what the Galileo system is all about. And we didn't even mention GLONASS here. I just realized that. So we didn't even talk about the Russian system. The Galileo system is really interesting because it's going to actually support two-way for distress calls. So one of the things they keep talking about is that Malaysian airliner that went down could have had an automatic GLONASS, or not GLONASS, sorry, the Galileo transmitter that would have instantly switched on so they knew what had happened. Well,
or at least where it was.
Yeah, not necessarily what happened, but they knew that it had met an unfavorable fate.
Yeah, that's a little disturbing thinking about that you can fly out of coverage range, and then of course there's no two-way satellite communication, and you're disappeared, gone.
Well, and the more pressing situation that they're talking about is for the nautical folks. When you get out into the oceans, you don't have a whole lot of communications unless you have something like the Iridium satellites, and the Galileo, being that it's not built for like the voice and data at the high speeds, it's built for handling your position, and that's about it as far as that goes, and sending back distress messages. It's targeted at just that, so you'll get a lot better performance, and you can do things like those emergency distress beacons that aren't as reliant on big, heavy batteries.
Right. And it said that it could also receive an acknowledgement of your distress too, right? Because I thought that was a neat aspect too.
Right. Now, though, the problem is that if I'm reading correctly, and I still haven't gotten a good, clear answer out of anything I have read, some of those services are going to be paid subscription services, and they're designed not for like you or I, but for the fleets, for the airlines, those kind of people who need that kind of service. For the rest of us, I'm not sure that they're really going to have much out there for us to do that we can necessarily afford. But yeah, it's basically like the Spot Messenger built into the whole navigation system. And the Galileo...
The InReach built for a much bigger purpose.
Right. But unlike InReach, which does use the Iridium and gets you more data, this is less data, if I understand correctly, and it's only for like emergency services. So InReach will let you do some like text messaging and things like that Galileo isn't supposed to do, but I could be wrong. They might be adding that kind of functionality in because they haven't finished launching the stuff. Why not?
Like Yuppie Yacht Rescue?
Yeah, exactly. Last I had heard, that was one of the biggest spot markets.
Exactly.
You need it. Let's move on to an article I found in Course 77.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think so. But Course 77, which is a great design blog, if you haven't checked that one out, talked about a camera that's more of an art project than anything else, called the Camera Restricta. And the artist and interactive design student Philip Schmidt created this thing. It's a concept whereby the camera decides whether or not you can shoot a particular photo in a particular location. Now, it locates itself via GPS, searches online for photos that have been geotagged nearby. If the camera says that there's too many photos that have been taken at your location, it restricts the viewfinder and actually, or it restricts the shutter and actually blocks the viewfinder. So I heard the interview with him on Spark. And he really doesn't want to do this. It was more like a interesting proof of concept. And the thing that Spark was talking about is this is more like a proof of concept in restricting photos in a certain area. So the thing that I didn't like about it, and is probably going to happen with our smartphones eventually, because like BlackBerry had been working on it, and even Apple, I think, had some patents on it like 6 or 7 years ago that people were talking about and getting all freaked out about. A company could actually send out a signal to say no photos here. Well, this is doing it in a little bit different way, just using the location services. So if you go to a press event, or not a press event, but like a concert, we'll say, you might not be able to take photos without a pass or something. Go to the Eiffel Tower and you can't take photos at night. You might have a GPS lock on taking photos of the Eiffel Tower at night then.
Does that mean this could restrict the number of food photos we have on Facebook?
It certainly could.
Oh, good. Here's a picture of my lunch. Oh, I can't. It won't let me take a picture of my lunch. What am I to do? Sorry, that was cruel. I completely understand, though I don't agree with, the whole we don't want you to take a picture here, so we are going to dictate to your phone or your camera, no, you cannot.
Well, the stuff that BlackBerry and Apple had been working on was legitimate. Hey, this is a research facility. We don't want any photos here. Other than like you go to a research facility, if they let you bring in your smartphone, they put a big piece of tape or something over the lens so that you can't take any photos. Which is and then they have to check that tape to make sure that it hasn't been removed. Like, you really? Well, I can appreciate that, but there's got to be a better way.
They've imposed.
Right. Well, but that's exactly what these places are looking for, is a way to disable the cameras so that stuff doesn't get out.
That's interesting. The take I got, I watched I watched the video where the woman was supposedly using one of these things around town, and I came away with it as a sort of more of a kind of a social commentary angle where they're saying, maybe you should be enjoying the area rather than just, worrying about getting pictures of it. Or maybe we should be not posting everything that we take a picture of. Maybe it doesn't all have to be on the internet.
Well, and that was
and I even had
thing is, he didn't want people taking, 1,000 pictures of this one location that everyone already has taken photos of because it's oversaturated with photos. And he doesn't want people to stop taking pictures there. He just wants people to realize, hey, there's a lot of photos here. Yeah. We need photos in other spaces. Go shoot over, around the corner where you can get something that no one has shot yet.
I wonder if anybody also had that idea of that legend about different cultures feeling that taking pictures of something kind of stole a piece of it or stole its soul or something like that. I was wondering if he was thinking, that by taking so many pictures or, posting so many pictures, we were somehow taking something away from the particular location. So those were the kind of things that came to mind when I was watching it.
That's an interesting story because I had actually heard about one of the parks complaining with Ansel Adams Photography that people wouldn't want to visit anymore because they'd already seen it and it wouldn't be as spectacular. And you think about that. If you've ever gone to any of the sites that Ansel Adams photographed and did one of his beautiful, striking pictures that you can't get out of your mind, do you still appreciate that as much? And I have to say, not necessarily specifically Ansel Adams, but in a lot of cases when I go in and visit these places, I'm actually disappointed by the real thing. I like the photos better because they were there at just the right time. They got just the right conditions.
Yep. And no people.
Well, even if they have people, you'll have like the fog, you have the sun setting or the sun rising, whatever. They go through all the effort that you can't take if you're there, in this very tight window. So there is something to that. But I don't think it really diminishes the grandeur of the location, but it might not be as impressive as it would have been without the spoiler photo, essentially.
Food for thought.
Yeah, I don't know if I can agree with you there, but I see your point.
It's something to think about, and I don't think that's one of those things that everyone would ever agree on, because it's your personal perception and your values that shape that whole experience.
Yeah, there's probably some locations that a photo is never going to really do justice to.
Right.
So.
Right. And then there's others where the photo, like I was saying with like Ansel Adams, he goes and he picks the exact right time and makes sure he's at the right location, the right, so he gets everything perfect. Mm-hmm. So you're never going to experience what he got because he knew, he watched, he went out and did it, and a lot of other photographers do the same thing. I'm not saying he's the only one who does by any stretch.
No, but that's why you appreciate the art, is you appreciate the artist's eye, the artist's vision for the area, and you look at that and go, wow, what a picture.
And this is one of the reasons why this camera is actually such a good idea, because so many of these photos are taken from that same outlook by thousands and thousands of people. It's just a standard photo. The ones that really stand out, the guys who really, and girls who really know what they're doing, are going out there, they're scouting the locations, they're watching the light, they check the calendar. I've got an app on my phone so that I know when golden hour is, so I can go out and shoot during golden hour when I want to go shoot something. Well, then I have to also take a look at the angles and everything else. So if you're going to get one of those really spectacular photos, it's not going to be going out there with a camera phone and just snapping it. You might get lucky and be there at just the right time, but to really get those kind of photos takes a lot of planning and a lot of effort. I know a photographer who's gone out to, I think it was Yellowstone, and
yes,
he's been getting home at 2 in the morning after or getting back to the hotel at 2 in the morning after a shoot, getting up at 3, so he's basically just shower and take off, get out at 3 so that he can be at another part of the park for the 5 a.m. sunrise.
Right.
And then he goes back and sleeps during the day.
Yeah. But you don't want to stop those iconic pictures. I mean, I live within view of Mount Rainier, and I take the picture of Mount Rainier from the way I see it. If I travel to another part of the state and look, and I go, that's Rainier, right? It looks so different from this angle, as you go around the mountain. Or the Space Needle here in Seattle. Those are iconic pictures that you want, and your camera says, no, there's too many of them.
Well, think of it more like this, though. It's going to say, hey, you can't take a picture of the Apple Store cube in New York, because that is now the most photographed location on Flickr.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. So
I don't have
this
a
is
problem
probably a good thing. Exactly. We need no more photos of the Apple Store cube, folks. Not until they change it or something.
Well, anyway, we'll go on. We could argue this all day.
Well, this is more like an art project. This is not, this in particular is not intended to do anything more than be a cool proof of concept and make you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the next topic we had was also from GPS World. This was a GPS Smart Soul launching in Germany. This is a product meant for Alzheimer's monitoring. Apparently, the GTX Corporation's flagship product is called GPS Smart Souls. These are an unobtrusive monitoring and tracking solution for those who suffer from Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, TBI, or other memory disorders and might have a tendency to wander. You can put these in the wearer's shoes, and since they contain a GPS tracking chip, which is connected through a cellular network, you can figure out where they are if you need to, if they happen to wander off. So it's a new product.
Love it.
And we were talking about this one a little bit before the show. We've seen a lot of other products similar to this one. Mm-hmm. But this is the first one that's like, an insole. This is pretty cool.
It is. Now, We've had a neighbor with Alzheimer's, and she would take off to the store, or she would drive to the store and walk back. And then she'd come out in the morning and go, "Where's my car?" So, we helped her, over time, and there were times where, she would wander off and we had no idea where she was. So things like this really are useful. You don't want to take people's freedom away from them, but you want to be able to have them and help them. So,
a quick note for Wet Coast, who was asking in the live Q&A, is it too late for the online contest? If you're watching this recorded, then yes, it is. Or listening to it. However, if you're live with us right now, it's 9:45 p.m. and you have till 9:50 p.m., so about 5 more minutes. But yeah,
plenty of time for an email.
Yeah,
or to track somebody's insole.
Exactly. But we were talking about this before the show, and I don't think this is something that you could just necessarily slip in and have surreptitiously. I can't say that, but slipping it on someone when you're
surreptitiously.
Thank you. When you're trying to get someone tracked that doesn't necessarily want to be tracked, 'cause it seems like it's a little bit too bulky for that. But there are all kinds of trackers that have been out for these dementia patients and kids especially. But the problem is, like with the wristbands and watches and stuff, they can come off so easily, and when people are going, a lot of times they take that off at night anyway, because they can't sleep with that stuff on. Plus, it has to charge up and all that kind of jazz. But if they're going outside,
an ankle bracelet? That seems to work well. I've seen TV shows about that.
Oh, exactly. But for like your neighbor, they probably want one of those car trackers as well.
Mm-hmm. That would be true, yeah.
Those are out there, and this is not like a new concept. It's just a new way to do it, and they've been working into like bathrobes and stuff in concept, but no one's actually come into manufacturing stage. This is the first one I know of that's actually hit manufacturing. So you have to have that cellular connection. So it's not going to work if they're in the basement, which could be a problem.
Right.
I shouldn't say that. It might work in the basement. We don't know how strong that radio is. But you're in most cases for this kind of user, it's going to work. Don't plan on this working to find your lost geocachers though, because they might be in the middle of a national park where there is no service.
What about putting it in a traveling cache and letting the cache itself update its own coordinates?
See, I always wanted to do that, but then we've talked about this kind of stuff a little bit before. The problem that I really see in doing that is privacy. You don't want people to know that you took that cache home overnight, and where you don't want everyone to know that this is where you live and sleep every night.
If you clearly state that the cache updates at this time each night, and if you have it in your possession, too bad for you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but then you also have to worry about the batteries.
Against certain listing sites that'll never allow that to happen. It's just a fun what if. So don't send me an email. We're only talking what ifs.
Yeah. Well, and I tried the tile on the tracker, on the Traveler Bug, and that's not been working so well. But the battery is the big issue with most of these, because how do you keep that battery topped off? And something like the traveling cache, maybe it's a solar cell.
So just the simple USB connection, and you've got it in your car. Charge me up, please.
Yeah, but that assumes that everyone's going to be good citizens about that. And,
yes, we're geocachers. We're nice people.
We are nice people.
We helped Hitchbot get along.
Yeah, well, that's a different story.
Until it hit the city of brotherly love, which didn't love it. Okay.
At Limex asks if you're actually asking people to read the description on the cache page.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Let's put it in the hint, because everybody looks at the hint.
Well, I'm thinking you're going to have something like stenciled on the outside of that container to say, please plug me in to charge me up.
Mm-hmm. That's a fun concept. We should expand on this some more.
That is a fun concept. And I've seen people that I think completely unintentionally have posted their home coordinates by accident by just putting like a photo they've done on an iPhone. They don't realize that it's putting the coordinates in there. And
Geotagging,
sometimes when I'm puzzle hunting, I look at everything. So I start looking in those photos and I'm like, put that location up into Google Maps and that's right on top of somebody's house. That's not where the cache is, but that's where that photo was taken.
Yep.
At least you hope that's not where the cache is.
Well, I'm assuming that's not where the cache is.
Will you help me find your cache? How did you find it here?
Do you have a cache in there?
Yeah. Oh, well, Engadget, one of my favorite online news sources, says most Android phones are vulnerable due to lack of security patches. A study partly funded by Google and conducted by the University of Cambridge researchers found that a whopping 87% of Android devices are vulnerable to known flaws. According to a post by Alistair R. Beresford, one of the team members, it's because of a lot of manufacturers don't issue security patches on a regular basis, leaving their devices exposed to malware. The researchers got that percentage from 20,000 users who've installed their device analyzer app and ran it in the background. And that could have been one of the malwares. You don't know that. No. Interestingly enough, Google Nexus devices got a 5.2 out of 10, making them the safest of all the Android headsets available. LG comes in second with a score of 4, while Motorola got a decent 3.1. Other popular Android manufacturers such as Samsung, Sony, HTC, and Asus all come in after Motorola with a score in the 2s. So there you have it. If you've got an Android phone and your carrier lets you, keep that thing updated.
Well, that's really the big problem in all of this, as I understand from listening to so many of the Android podcasts.
Yes.
It's really the lack of cooperation. I don't want to say it's actually a lack of cooperation, but it really
coordination.
Well, no, it really is more lack of cooperation. It's what is the priority of the carriers, and it's not really to get you another, not to get you another patch, but to get a new phone out there, and they only have so much that they can do with the resources that they have. So instead of making their network secure, they're more worried about making it stable and getting you into another new phone. Right. And that's where they're putting their efforts, is into the stability, into getting the new products out there, because it really is a big deal for the carrier that they have the latest, greatest product. Especially Verizon said that they had been hurt by not having the iPhone, because that was the new big product that everyone wanted. So, they're going to go out there, they're going to make sure that they have, the next iPhone ready, they have the next Droid ready. They're making sure that that's what's going to be out there. If they make someone wait a little bit extra to get that security update, that's just the risk that they take, I guess.
Too bad,
and I don't like it.
I agree. I agree.
And this is something that is substantially different between iOS and everyone else. Every other phone manufacturer goes through the carrier to get it released in the U.S. Now, in Europe and in some of the other countries around the world, you can buy an unlocked phone and just throw it on the network, easy peasy, nothing's really different. But in those cases, you're hearing a lot of problems with, I'll get updates for about a year, and then the manufacturer discontinues it, and they pretty much discontinue support for it. Mm-hmm. But iOS, and the way that Apple's done it, they held the hammer over the head of the carriers. So they're the ones who do all of the updates. They do all of the releases. It doesn't go through the carrier. So that's why Apple is able to do the updates for all of their phones, all of their iPads and everything at the same time, because they're the ones controlling it. They don't let the carriers get involved. Everyone else has to have the carriers involved.
They control the horizontal and the vertical.
Yeah. And they're evil. Carriers are evil. All right. Well, that's all we're going to actually put into the Randomize show. But we do have some extra topics that we've picked out, including something about cardboard. In talking about iPhones, they're actually doing better in water resistance now. And even Pepsi is going to get into the smartphone game, which is just really, really weird. But we'll be talking about that in the Patron Extras, Patron Extra show in just a few moments. If you're listening live, if you are a patron, make sure to check that out in the feed, in the Patron feed later on. And Jennifer, you're going to be sticking around with us for that as well, correct? Mm-hmm. Awesome. So if you're watching live and you're a patron, make sure to stick around, and you'll be getting info on watching that show. And we'll start that. Give us probably about 10 minutes, because we got to shut this one down, go in, get that one set up. But before we go, we got to tell everyone who got the live prize this week for that.
Did I win, Daryl?
No, because you didn't send me an email.
Oh. No, you needed to do that?
You had to do the email. Oh. And the winner, who's going to get that live prize tonight, which was the 365-day membership to Project-GC, is Sprouter. And, I think that's a name we haven't seen before.
He's right here in my area. I know him well. So I'll have to come over and borrow his Project-GC membership.
You'll have to borrow a cup of Project-GC?
Yes. Excuse me. May I have a little Project-GC, please? Just a dash.
Well, Sprouter, thanks for watching live tonight. We appreciate you coming out here and hope that you'll keep doing it. And we really have gotten a bunch more people actually sending in a bunch of new names, I should say. I don't know if they're new people. They're probably older people. They've been around for a while. But we have seen a bunch of new names in the weekly contest, and we absolutely love seeing all those names that we haven't seen before, and hope that you're enjoying the show, and we'll continue to stick around. And make sure to send us any of your comments, questions, feedbacks, any of that kind of stuff, anytime you have it. If it's a little topic that might not go with one of the other shows, we have these random shy shows about once a month or so. Yeah. So you can call that in to 206-350-3647. We love hearing those in your own voice. You can even record it on your smartphone or computer or whatever audio recorder. Send us those files, or you can just type them out at GeoGearHeads@CacheManiacs.com. And, of course, we're on social media, too. You got Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus, of course, which is where we do this one. And, if you're watching live, even if you're not watching live, but if you're on Google Plus, you can actually drop those shorter questions right into the live Q&A, and it even tags it in the video so that you can go back to it later in the recording. Very, very cool feature.
Sprouter is still listening live, and he says, thanks, guys.
And you're very welcome.
Thank you. Now, I tell you on a regular basis, I don't know if you're listening to me. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Daryl does a fabulous job of lining up shows. So here's a sample of the next 5 weeks. Are you ready? Maybe you want to get your calendars out, because October 22nd, that's just next week. See how exciting it is? We're talking GPSR picking. I think that's going through and finding the old GPSRs out of people's barns. October 29th is road caching number 6. November 5th is intercaching. This is the second time we've done this. This is an exciting show. This is one I'm looking forward to. November 12th. Mark your calendars. November 12th is our next Randomize show. That's Randomize 39. November 19th is smartphone caching. We're going to be rounding up a bunch of smartphone apps and talking about them. So set your calendars. Get your reminders going. You're not going to want to miss these GeoGearhead shows.
And you can see that whole list complete with the time zone converter so that you can find it in your own time at geogearheads.com/upcoming. If you want any of those topics or whatever, you have anything to suggest, drop us that email or give us a call. But you know what? We haven't told you what the question is if you want a prize from coinsandpins.com next week. So, get that email ready, label it question 199. That's 199. I can't believe that it's almost 200. And in the body, include your geocaching.com screen name and tell us which series of Garmin handheld GPSRs was the first to include their paperless geocaching. If you have that, to GeoGearHeads at CacheManiacs.com by October 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's 6 p.m. Central. Or no, sorry, that's Pacific. I'm getting my time zones messed up tonight. 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. You'll be entered into that drawing for a coin, or actually for a number of different things. You can choose a patch, a trackable tag, all kinds of cool things from coinsandpins.com. So thanks to them for joining that prize. And make sure you get that in by October 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern to GeoGearHeads at CacheManiacs.com with the subject question 199. So check the Cachemaniacs website at CacheManiacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads at cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Suffnauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show is copyright 2015 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.